Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, Formula One and mid-season driver swaps are a tale as old as time, well, sort of, and it's already happened twice in 2025. In the high-pressure world of Formula One, any change of driver is a fine line of risk and reward. After all, a change of driver could make or break a season or even a career, and while some become a roll of the dice that ultimately failed, others can prove a success and even provide the springboard to a driver's time in Formula One. So in light of all the recent chopping and changing, I thought we'd take a look at 10 of the best mid-season driver changes of the 21st century. First off, though, the criteria for this list, because, we all love rules. We've looked through all mid-season driver changes, including one-off substitute appearances which happen for a variety of reasons, including injury, sponsorships, and driver unavailability. We have also leaned towards the driver changes which featured the bigger racing moments or results rather than a simple driver upgrade. So, for example, you could easily argue that Daniel Ricciardo replacing Narain Karthikeyan at HRT was a clear improvement, and the Aussie went on to have a stellar race-winning career, but the car was insufficient to challenge for any real noteworthy results at the time of the switch. And again, some of these were not full-time changes and were instead one-off stand-in appearances. But with all of that out of the way, here are our 10 greatest mid-season driver changes of the 21st century. At number 10 on the list, it is the man, the myth, and the legend himself, Markus Winkelhock. With driver Christian Albers dropped from the Spiker team due to failed sponsor payments, there was an unlikely debut for Winkelhock at the 2007 European Grand Prix. I'm getting the flashbacks already. The German had a respectable but not spectacular junior career and was not really widely tipped to be in F1 all that long. In fact, his career lasted for one memorable weekend. Whilst okay, his raw pace wasn't turning heads, Winkelhock and the Spiker team teased one of the biggest F1 underdog stories of all time. Gambling on the rain hitting the Nürburgring hard, Winkelhock pitted on the formation lap for wet tyres, which vaulted him from last place to the lead of the race by over half a minute. Unfortunately, red flags wiped out his unlikeliest of leads, but had the rain not fallen with the level of ferociousness that it did, we might have ended up recognising one of the sport's most unlikely point scorers, and hey, maybe even race winners, who knows. At number 9, it is a switch at McLaren. With Juan Pablo Montoya's ties to the Woking team cut in dramatic fashion after the 2006 US Grand Prix, McLaren turned to their long-time test driver Pedro de la Rosa to fill the seat until further notice, which, as it turned out, happened to be until the end of the season. And with the team having a difficult year, there wasn't really a heap of pressure on the Spaniard to be challenging for podiums at every race. Having already driven a variety of cars and performed stand-in duties before in F1, De La Rosa performed admirably despite not having the outright pace of teammate Kimi Räikkönen. His career highlight came in an impressive race in Hungary where he tackled the tricky wet conditions to take a career-best second-place finish. Funny thing is, numerous points finishes across the rest of the season meant he actually had a similar points per race ratio to Montoya. Sadly, for De La Rosa, he lost out on an outside chance of a 2007 drive to a rookie called Lewis Hamilton. I wonder what happened to him. The swap in 8th place is one that I have argued should be at number 1 for obvious reasons, but that was a firm no from the team. After Fernando Alonso had spectacularly crashed out of the 2016 Australian Grand Prix, the two-time world champion was sidelined for the following round in Bahrain. As a result, development driver and 2015 GP2 champion and general legend Stoffel Vandoorne was called up to the second seat alongside Jenson Button. As one of the brightest talents to emerge from the feeder series, there was frustration that he was unable to find a seat in Formula One for 2016. Therefore, his one-off race was a great chance to add to the outcry. He duly outqualified world champion teammate Jenson Button in his first qualifying session and, although passed on the opening lap by the Brit, Stoff raced extremely well to take a point on his debut in a McLaren that wasn't a guaranteed points finisher. I'll be taking no further questions, Your Honour. In 7th, with Robert Kubica sidelined due to a scary crash at the Canadian Grand Prix, BMW promoted test driver Sebastian Vettel to fill the seat for the following race at Indianapolis. Qualifying close to his experienced teammate Nick Heidfeld, Seb recovered from an off-track moment at Turn 1 in the race to pick up a point on debut, which caught the attention of future employers within Red Bull. Whilst he wasn't the youngest driver to start a Grand Prix, at the time Vettel became the youngest driver to score a Formula One point, His record has, though, since been beaten by Daniel Kvyat, Max Verstappen, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, Ollie Bearman, and most recently, Kimi Antonelli, but it was nevertheless a remarkable effort for an emerging talent who would go on to do pretty well for himself in F1, I think it's fair to say. In 6th place is a swap at Toyota in 2009. Now, given that Kamui Kobayashi didn't have a stellar GP2 record to make him an obvious contender for a Formula One drive, the Toyota Junior was handed his debut at Interlagos after Timo Glock was injured in a heavy crash at Suzuka. Whilst he wasn't on the pace of teammate Jarno Trulli in qualifying, the Japanese driver certainly made an impact in the race itself. Despite a collision with countryman Kazuki Nakajima, his fearless racing style won admirers and ruffled the feathers of champion-elect Jenson Button. Kobayashi was retained for the season finale in Abu Dhabi and raced well to P6 ahead of his teammate, and it was a performance that helped him secure a seat at BMW Sauber Ferrari, don't ask, for 2010. On to the top 5 now, and wow how things can change in less than 12 months. The 2019 Formula 2 champion Nyck de Vries finally earned a chance at a Formula 1 drive in 2022 when he was brought in to replace the unwell Alex Albon at the Italian Grand Prix. A strong drive to P9 equaled Williams' best result of the season to that point, and it put the Dutchman on team radars for 2023, even impressing one Helmut Marko. Not an easy feat. But having signed for AlphaTauri for the 23 season, de Vries was unable to match teammate Yuki Tsunoda's pace and ended up losing his seat after just 10 races. Fortunately though, since then, things have become much more stable at the two Red Bull teams. Honest. The swap in 4th place on this list might be a bit controversial given what he went on to achieve with the group's teams, but remember, before you start shouting at us in the comments, we're not looking at what they did a few years later, we're really just looking at how they performed at the time of the switch. But anyway, with Red Bull already forging a cutthroat reputation with their approach to driver development, Sebastian Vettel would turn out to be the first genuine race-winning prospect. Having impressed earlier in 2007 with that stand-in performance at BMW, Vettel earned the call to replace Scott Speed ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix, where he would go on to finish in 16th place. It was a difficult year for the Toro Rosso team, but that allowed Vettel to bed himself in out of the spotlight and away from big pressure, and he did begin to shine towards the end of the year with a stellar drive at Fuji, well until his race was ended by a collision with future teammate Mark Webber, that is, but he made amends with an impressive drive to P4 at the following race in China. Things would get even better for the young German driver in the years that followed, but that is a story for another day. In 3rd place, it's another BMW swap. Now, the stock of 1997 world champion Jacques Villeneuve was at its lowest in 2006, and after being outscored by teammate Nick Heidfeld in the first 12 races of the season, he and BMW parted ways. Young junior driver hotshot Robert Kubica was drafted in from the Hungarian Grand Prix and made an immediate impression on the grid. He outqualified Heidfeld on his debut and went on to finish 7th on Sunday. However, Kubica was unfortunately disqualified and lost his point-scoring finish after his car was found to be underweight at the end of the race. He would soon trump this, though, with a brilliant drive at Monza where he claimed 3rd place in only his 3rd Grand Prix, and it proved to be the springboard for a promising career which was unfortunately cut short following a massive rally crash in 2011 which left him with severe injuries that at the time appeared to end his F1 and indeed his racing career. But as we now know, he would go on to make a remarkable return to the sport against all odds with Williams in 2019, where he would score the team's only point of the season. What a story. In the runners-up spot is a one-off stand-in performance, and it is George Russell's unexpected Mercedes debut. Ahead of the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton tested positive for COVID, which resulted in the world champion missing the race weekend. As a result, Mercedes turned to then junior driver George Russell to partner Valtteri Bottas for the event. Presented with his first race-winning opportunity in Formula One, Russell was narrowly edged to pole position by his experienced teammate, but made his way into an early race lead and things were looking very good for him. However, it wasn't meant to be, with the Brit undone by a tyre mix-up and a puncture, which meant he only ended up with a P9 finish and a fastest lap to show for his efforts. It was, though, an excellent first race with the team, which, although it perhaps deserved a better result, and it was only a one-off stand-in appearance, it definitely had ramifications because it will have gone a long way to helping in the Silver Arrow's decision to promote him to the team for the 2022 season. Now, before I get to our perhaps totally obvious pick, there are some memorable mentions that are well worth, a mention, and in no particular order. Following a crash in practice for the 2023 Dutch Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo, who himself had just replaced Nyck de Vries at AlphaTauri, was ruled out through injury for the rest of the weekend and the following 4 races. In stepped Liam Lawson, who did a solid job at short notice at Zandvoort and in his second full race weekend at Singapore, one of the most physically demanding races on the calendar. He outqualified every other Red Bull car and went on to pick up 9th place in the race. That was the team's best result of the season at that stage. Franco Colapinto replaced Logan Sargent at Williams from the 2024 Italian Grand Prix and was another driver who impressed almost immediately with his speed and even picked up an 8th place finish in just his second race in F1. The Argentine driver would initially miss out on a seat for the 2025 season, at least until Jack Doohan was demoted to Alpine ahead of the race at Imola. And if you're watching this in a few months or years' time, who knows what's happened after that? Maybe Flavio Briatore is driving the car himself. Let us know, future people. Alexander Wurz replaced an injured Juan Pablo Montoya at McLaren for the 2005 race at Imola and incredibly picked up a podium finish. With Montoya back in the car from the following round, though, that was the Austrian's only appearance that season, but what a way to make a statement. Look, 2 more super quick honourable mentions before I move on because they just keep coming to me, and so you can let me know some more down in the comments, otherwise this video is going to be about 7 weeks long. In 2016, Esteban Ocon replaced Rio Haryanto at Manor from the Belgian Grand Prix and impressed with some solid performances in a back-of-the-grid car. Performances that were good enough to earn him a full-time drive with Force India for the following season. And how about Carlos Sainz replacing Jolyon Palmer at Renault from the 2017 race in Austin? Okay, Sainz had a tough time with reliability issues, but he demonstrated enough speed, proven by his 7th place finish in his first race with the team, to stay on for 2018. And of course, if we'd extended this even further back than the start of the 21st century, then the likes of Mika Hakkinen for Michael Andretti in 1993 and Michael Schumacher for Roberto Moreno would make this list too. And finally, taking the top spot, it is Stoffel... Oh, no, I've already used him, haven't I? Oh well, it'll have to be Max Verstappen then, I suppose. Jokes aside, the Dutchman obviously takes the first place on this list thanks to his unbelievable win on debut for Red Bull. He was promoted to the main team in place of Daniel Kvyat ahead of the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix and became the only driver of the 21st century to win a Grand Prix after switching teams partway through the same season, at time of recording at least. Although his victory showed everyone what he could do if the opportunity presented itself, it wasn't just that race where he impressed following the promotion. Podiums in Austria, Britain, Germany, Malaysia and Japan would follow, and a stunning wet weather drive at the Brazilian Grand Prix to take P3 turned even more heads, and the rest, as they say, is history. That is it for this one then, but what do you make of our list? And it is our list, it's not just all me this one, it was definitely a team effort. Do you think any of the picks should be higher or lower, or is there perhaps a swap we've missed off that would absolutely make your top 10? You can let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and for the latest news, reaction and analysis from the world of Formula One, head on over to planetf1.com. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.